If we're being honest, investing can be extremely complex, but is there a way to make it simple? And are there just a handful of things that you should focus on so that you can build wealth through the stock market? The answer is yes. All right, so let's go ahead and break it down. There are three factors, okay? I know there are thousands of stocks and all of these strategies and all these different accounts. At the end of the day, there are three primary factors that you need to focus on for you to build wealth. You have time, you have the amount of money that you are going to invest, and then you have your investment selection. That's it. What you invest in, how long you are going to invest in that thing, and how much money are you going to put into it. That is it, okay? But how do you change these factors and make sure that they fit for you? Here's a quick and easy guide for you to use, and it kind of gives you an idea on what investments you should choose, how much you should invest, and then obviously how long is it going to be before you become extremely rich. Okay, so the first one is time. And I would argue this is the most important one because it's really the one you can't change, right? So like the more money I make, as I get a new job or get a bonus or whatever that thing is, that can change, right? There is a way to find more money, take on a side hustle, get a new job, all that stuff, right? So that's one thing that can change. I can easily change what I'm investing in, right? I can do that every 6 months. I can do it every day. Those two things are easy, but time is a thing I cannot change. Okay, I started investing in my early 20s, which is good, but I really wish my parents would have started investing account at age 0 like I did for my kids. Now, back then, which feels like a long time ago, and it was, but back then, they didn't have those options. But the longer you have to invest, the easier things get and the cheaper things get. So if you are in your late 20s or your 30s, you may have to start investing $300, $400, $500 a month for you to become a millionaire. Here's the thing though. Thankfully, if you have a 401k match or something like that, you could put in $250, your company could put in another $250, and boom, you've hit $500 a month, right? But that's a timing thing. You have until, age 25 to about 65, or however long you want to work, or less, right? But that time is the time, right? And that's not something that you can necessarily control. I cannot go back in time and invest extremely early for myself, but I can do it for my kids. So that's a timing factor. The less time you have to invest, the more money that you need to put in. Okay, that is a factor that is not changeable. It is an absolute point for those who watch the Marvel shows and stuff like that. It's not something that can change. And the reason why it's the case is because you want your money to grow and compound every single year. Well, if you reduce the number of years, you're not going to have that ability to compound unless you add significantly more money each year, each month, so on and so forth. So the timing factor is something that I would argue is the most important. And again, for someone who's starting very young, let's say 20 and below, that's going to make it easier. So you may not have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? You may not have to invest $12,000 a year, which is $1,000 a month. If you're starting at 15, if you're starting at 5, I don't know who is age 5 watching this channel, but you guys get the point. You can invest just $100 a month and hit that millionaire mark much sooner than someone who is starting later. Okay, so that's the time factor. The next one is how much money you are putting in. I've talked a little bit about that before. I would say number one, there are calculators out there, and I'll make sure I put a link to those in the comments below. There are calculators out there that'll say, hey, put in your age and what year you want to retire or what age you want to retire, and it'll spit out a number on how much you should be investing right now. That is one very, very easy way. Now, there are some people that say either A, I don't want to wait that long, or B, I just don't have enough money. $5, $50, $25 a week or a month is not going to make a difference. I'm here to tell you this now. I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to say it to the end of time, okay? It does not matter. Whatever you invest now, whether it's a large amount of money or a small amount of money, is more than zero, okay? It is more than zero. I've seen far too many people say, well, I don't have $800 a month to invest, so I'm just not going to do anything. So in 10 years, when you have nothing, you could have had half of that, right? You could have had, instead of $800 a month, even if you did $40 a month for 10 years, $40 a month for even 5 years is greater than zero. And that is the key. The other thing too is your conditions, your income can change over time. But Why wait for those things to change instead of investing what little you may have now, allow that to grow, and then when things get better, you can just invest even more on top of that. That works. I think that is a decent plan for people to start with. So there's the money side of it. The last part is the investing selection piece. What are you putting this money in, and how long is this thing growing for, right? Now, for most people, this is where those index funds come in. And if you don't know what an index fund is, you're in the right place. But I call these the all-star investments. So instead of me trying to go out and select, let's take a sports metaphor here, instead of me trying to create my own fantasy football team and select the best players, hoping that they do well, why don't I just have an all-star list, right? A Pro Bowl list, if you will, and just have all the best stocks in one simple thing and just invest in that. It's going to be hard for the team to lose, right? So we've already checked off the investment piece. If you only did an index fund, put a consistent amount of money in, and just invested for long enough, that millionaire status is actually achievable. It is. Now you might be thinking, well, if it's that easy, why don't people do it? Well, one, I would argue that there are a ton of people that are doing it. Fidelity Investments puts out their numbers every year, and it's well over 100,000 people every single year that hit millionaire statuses within their accounts. It happens. You may not, see people throw a party that say, hey, I'm a millionaire now, but it does happen. The thing is, there are way more next door millionaires than you actually know, and it may not be the flashiest thing that most people think about. A lot of people think you get a millionaire status and you get, the fancy car and the biggest house in the world, when in reality, the average typical millionaire could be next door to you, wearing jeans, driving an F-150, and not living the most lavish life to you, even though their bank account is quite large, right? So you may not always see that, but it does happen. It's the easiest way to do it. Are there other ways to become a millionaire? Are there more flashy ways to become extremely wealthy? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways that are out there, but the easiest and perhaps most reliable is by taking advantage of those three things: the time, how much money you're putting in, and what your investment selection is. If you want to find a shortcut to this, because I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, all that sounds fine, all that sounds boring, but is there a way I can make a shortcut and circumvent this, and instead of taking 30 years or 40 years, which I'll be honest with you, that's not a sexy concept at all. It's not. Okay, so what are the shortcuts that you can take? Well, when we talk about the investment selection piece, that is perhaps where you can take the biggest, easiest shortcut, other than just investing more money, because you can do that too, but that's not always the easiest thing for people to do. So when we talk about the shortcut piece, index funds are known, I would say for the last 60 or 70 years or so, have paid 7 to 10% on average. But what if you could get 20 or 30% on average? That would cut down the time it takes for you to go from 0 to $1 million, or 0 to 100,000, or whatever your goal is. The key there is you would have to be better at choosing those investments. So instead of just an index fund, perhaps that stock is a Microsoft, a Tesla, an Alphabet, aka Google, Meta, Nvidia, whatever that stock is going to be. And that's where this channel comes in too, because yes, we love index funds. The index funds are, I would say 90%, maybe 80 to 85%. Let's do 85 to 95% of my portfolio to be more direct there. But I got some stocks here too to kind of take a little bit of that shortcut too. But what are the stocks that you should look at now? What are some of the places that you can start to look for these investments, and how well are those doing, and could they fit in your portfolio? If that's the question that you have, and it should be, then these are the videos that you should watch next.